Hey everyone, Sharon Schenker here. How you doing? So today we're going to be talking about the 10 commandments of marriage because we're coming up to the holiday of Shavuot when God gave the entire Torah to the Jewish people. It was a national revelation where he revealed himself to the entire Jewish people. And I want to take the 10 commandments, Charlton Heston style, and give it to you in the form of how do we take those 10 commandments and make it lessons for us to have a beautiful marriage. So let's just go. I heard from Laurie Palatnik. I saw this about 6 years ago. Thank you, Laurie. She taught me how to teach my children to remember the 10 commandments in 10 easy steps. So I'm going to give that to you now. And I'm going to test you at the end, hoping that you remember it and you could give it over to your housemates, your family, your kids, your husband. Let's go. Number one, there's only one God. There's only one God. You've got to know that God exists. Number two, there's not two gods. Don't believe in idolatry. Don't go after other gods. Number three, oh my God, don't take God's name in vain. Number four, there's two challahs and two candles. Keep Shabbos. Number five, if you don't listen to me, I'm going to give you a punch. Better honor your parents. Number six is like a six-shooter. Don't murder. Number seven is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's like the ring finger. Don't commit adultery. You only marry one person. Or the 7-year itch. Number eight, an 8 on its side is kind of like handcuffs. You put your hands in because don't steal or you're going to go to jail. And number 9 is kind of, it's a 9 or is it an upside down 6? Is it a 9 or a 6? Well, don't lie. Don't lie. Don't give false testimony. And number 10, woo, coming at you there with all my fingers because I want everything you have. I'm so jealous. Don't be jealous. Okay, so they're the 10 commandments. We'll do it one more time. Number one, there's only one God. You've got to know God. Number two, there's not two. Don't do idolatry. Don't believe in any other gods. Number three, oh my God, don't take God's name in vain. Number four, two challahs, two candles. Got to keep Shabbos. Number five, gonna smack you if you don't honor your parents. Number six, six-shooter, don't murder, don't kill. Number seven is the ring finger or the 7-year itch, don't commit adultery. Only marry one person, not two. And number 8 is handcuffs on its side. Number 8, don't steal when you're going to go to jail. Number 9 could be a 6. So don't lie. And number 10, woo, don't be jealous. Don't cover after other people's things, wanting everything. So you're going to be able to do that by yourself, to give it over to your friends and your family. But now we're going to take those 10 commandments, now that you know them, and figure out lessons for marriage, lessons for relationship. So let's just start at the beginning. Number 1, you got to know there's a God. There's only one God. There is one God. We got to be aware of the following truths. He always existed. God always existed. He's always going to exist. Before creation, there wasn't anything else apart from him. So it's also one of the 6 constant mitzvahs that Jews are meant to be aware of every minute of the day. And that's knowing that there's a God. And Hashem there's only one. Okay. So you got to know. What does know mean? The word yada is Hebrew for know. To know in Judaism, actually, it says Adam knew his wife Eve and they bore a son. So to know is actually a deeper sense of connection, a deeper sense of intimacy. In the context of Adam knew his wife Eve, it's physical intimacy, but it also goes much deeper. Understanding, to know someone is to understand their dreams, their hopes, their aspirations, their strengths and their weaknesses, everything about them. But when we're talking marriage, to really know someone and to understand and have a deep connection with them, It's really the quality of friendship that you have. That's really knowing someone, to know a friend, to feel someone knows you in a deep, intimate way. So John Gottman is a relationship expert. As a therapist, I actually had to study. He has he's authored many books on the market, on marriage. I suggest all of them, but I had his textbook to read when I learned about couples therapy. And he says that he has for 30 years, he has done research on couples. He has what he calls a love lab, and he takes lots of people in and he connects them to heart machines and pulse and anger, and he's able to measure everything. And he's actually found that the quality of the friendship in the marriage is going to determine how successful that marriage is. So he calls something love maps. You have to understand your partner's love map to really develop a deep friendship. So asking questions about their childhood, there's loads of questions. If you look up John Gottman love maps, you'll get a list of questions. So I also found recently there's a whole wave of, it's called the 36 questions to really develop a deep relationship and a deep friendship. Check that out also on Google. But the quality of a friend, Gottman really says that there are 3 ways that you can develop the quality of friendship in your marriage. To really, again, got to know God, you've got to really know your partner. So number 1, to develop that commitment and trust, you have to, number 1, ask open questions. When you ask closed questions, it's never going to develop into anything that helps you understand the person, to listen, to understand them even deeper. Learn about their inner world by asking how they feel. Again, you're going to get the love maps and you're going to look at the 36 questions to develop a relationship. You'll see it all on Google, and you'll be able to ask those open questions to develop depth in the relationship even more. Number 2 is tell stories. What happened on Mount Sinai when we received the Torah is we got a book containing the richness and vastness of instructions for living, of how to have the best life ever. And most of what we know in our history has been passed down by stories, because those stories help you have a deeper connection and understanding of what's gone before you. So if you want to have a deeper connection of your spouse or your partner, you're going to ask them to tell you stories, their family story, their broken leg story, how their friendship story. But in that story, try and focus on perseverance, connection, and joy. So there's so much to learn about each other. And the 3rd way, it's not Gottman's, but it's mine, is imagine walking up to your partner and asking them, what is it that, if I'm praying for you, what would you want me to pray for you? And that's when you really find someone's inner world. What is their needs? What do they want you to pray for? And it may be something so far out there. That's how you can really support your husband in a different dimension and really develop the friendship. Because when you pray for someone, you care about them. It doesn't work the other way around. We care about someone and then we pray for them. But when you pray for someone, I can pray for someone that I've never met in the community, and I care so deeply about them when I pray for them. And you will too. So they're the 3 ways you could develop that. Number 1, you have to know that there's a God. Number 1, in marriage, you have to really have a deep connection. The word yada, to know, is a deep intimacy and connection. How? Gottman says, through friendship. How do we develop friendship? Ask open questions, tell stories, figure out what the other person would want you to pray for them. And Google those lists of questions and really understand the hopes and dreams and aspirations of the other person through questions and answers. Number 2, don't believe in any other God. We really, in marriage, we really live in a disposable generation. If something doesn't work, get rid of it. Get a new one. So many years ago, I was at a wedding and I saw Rabbi Hillel Weinberg, who is the founder of Aish's son, who at the time was the head of Aisha Torah. So Rabbi Hillel Weinberg. So whenever I see people who have, well, everyone has wisdom. When I see people who are known for their wisdom, I go ask them questions. So I went up to him at this wedding. I said, Rav Hillel, what advice do you have on a great marriage? And he said, wow, we're about to go to, I'm expecting a huge class, a lecture, deep wisdom. And he said to me, well, we're about to go to a chuppah. Under that chuppah, when you stand under a chuppah, the best advice is that when you're under that chuppah, that's your zivug. That's your partner for life. Not talking in cases of abuse, emotional, physical. But when you're standing under that chuppah, that's your zivug. That's your bashert. And now you've got to spend the rest of marriage is a character trait workshop, a midas workshop. Now you've got to spend the rest of your life developing, becoming one in mind, body, and spiritually. That's the work of transformation. So that's number one. There isn't anyone else. And when you're under that chuppah, what's the blessing? There's 7 blessings that we give the bride and groom. What's one of the blessings? It says like this. Blessed are you, God, who we bless that they be like Adam and Eve in the garden of old. That's the blessing. You should be like Adam and Eve in the garden of old. So the depth of understanding that is that there wasn't anyone else. They should be like Adam and Eve because there was no one else to compare to. There's no other men, no other women there. This is your bashert. This is your zivug. This is your marriage partner for life. Now you've got to figure out how to develop, how to communicate, how to, when we used to buy something and it broke, we'd get rid of it. But back in the day, they would fix it, not get rid of it. So now we got to figure out how to fix it. When something's broken, you can go to YouTube, how to understand, how do I ask people and find mentors and figure out how you can better communicate and connect with one another in order to have a deep relationship and to know that there really is no one else. It says that 40 days before you were conceived, a heavenly voice came out and declared this was the person, Poloni, and is meant to marry Joe. 40 days before, wow. So that the person we married to is even destined 40 days before we were even conceived. So we're not meant to believe in any other God. On Passover, we actually slaughter the Paschal lamb, right? And on the Seder table, there's a bone that we have on the Seder plate. So that represents the Paschal lamb. And the lamb was the God of the Egyptians. So that's what we do physically. And then we talk about that sacrifice that was that the Jewish people had before they even left Egypt. But for us on a spiritual dimension, but as we're preparing for Passover, we're meant to look at the other gods that we worship in our life that's not God, and also to sacrifice them. There's Shech the Korban Pesach. It's a process that we go through. So I have a list here. There's money, exercise, ego. Well, what are the gods of the generation that we're in now? Where do people put all their power? What do we worship? Career, fashion, fame, wealth. Today we're walking around with signs, and our signs about who we are as people is, I'm a doctor, I have a 6-pack, I live in a 10,000 square foot home. And that's what builds our self-esteem of what other people think of us. We worship these gods in order to become. But you already are, because you're a soul. So what we do, how does that affect our relationships, our marriages? When we're worshiping, because we're all religious, so we're all worshiping something. But number 2, don't believe in any other gods. A, there's no one else out there for you. This is your husband. You don't get rid of it, you fix it. And number 2, all the other gods, how are they affecting your marriage? Well, half the time we blame our spouse for not helping us reach and worship the other god. Whether it's exercise or money, he's just not good enough. He's not helping me get there. He doesn't worship. He's not a believer. So perhaps maybe put your husband or wife on the pedestal instead. and not like a god, but hold them in high esteem rather than all the things that aren't going to serve you in as we move on to the next world. They're just what we've seen in the time of Corona. What's really important is developing the relationships around us, being content with what we have. Number 3, don't take, oh my God, don't take Hashem's name in vain, right? So vanity is like, nothing's important. So don't take your spouse for granted. Don't think he's not important. There are everyday things to be grateful for. And if you write a list and let them know the things that you're grateful for, the whole relationship will change. And also, don't take Hashem's name in vain is really talking about not being very careful about our speech and not making oaths. The Chofetz Chaim says there are 31 mitzvahs of the 613 in the Torah just about speech. So it's because your speech redefines your reality. And when you stand under the chuppah, he repeats after the rabbi, Harayat Mukadeshatli, you are betrothed to me amongst all the Jewish people. So it doesn't matter if it's 5:15 or 7:15, the minute those words are spoken, boom, you're married. You can light Shabbat candles early than it says on the calendar and cover up your eyes, and then you say the blessing, L'hadlik ner shel Shabbat. Now it's Shabbat because your speech has changed the reality. But it's the same in relationships as well. You can build someone and you can break them. The idea of sticks and stones don't hurt, it's not true. They really hurt. And that's why people need to deal with stuff and deal with issues and deal with the old record that's going around and around of what people have said and how they've hurt them as an adult. In order to have a full life, a full rich life, we have to process those. So speech, we need kind words instead of harsh words, requests instead of demands, compliments instead of criticism. Speech has the power to build. I just thought of a great story. So there's a couple, they're driving down the street, they're driving through the desert, and there's nowhere around, and the husband turns to the wife and says, honey, we need some gas. She says, oh, I know, it's about 20 miles down the road, we're going to get gas. Thank God they just made it to the gas station. He's the CEO of a big corporation, she's the wife, she's a mother and a wife, and they finally see the gas station and they pull in. And as they pull in, he gets out to go and pay, and he looks out the window and he sees that the guy who's pumping the gas for her they're having this very animated conversation, and they're chatting away. The husband gets back in the car and they drive off, and he says, honey, who's that guy? Like, you're having such a conversation with him. And she said, well, I went to high school with him. Like, we dated in high school, and we've been high school sweethearts right until the end, actually. So he says to her, oh, aren't you lucky? Because if you married him, you would have been the wife of a gas pumper. And now you married me, you're the wife of the CEO. And she said, nah, honey, if I married him, I would be the wife of a CEO. Because it's the woman who builds her husband. The husband can build her wife too, his wife too. So you have to make sure we never marry the finished product. We marry people who are always growing and always developing, and you can build them or break them with words. It's up to you. And people say, well, I can't control it, and he's always mean to me. It just takes one person to show gratitude or to make a compliment. And the more you take responsibility for your responses and you give in a beautiful way, it changes the whole environment. And then you'll see he comes back at you also with kindness. You show kindness through speech. Number 4, keep Shabbos. Two challahs, 2 candles. Keep Shabbos. So Shabbos, we're told, we light these candles, and the candle goes in the middle of the table. And it's what do candles make? Around the bath, it's an atmosphere of relaxation. in lots of tea lights around a room. It's kind of new agey, hippie. A candle in the middle of a table for two lovers. It's romance. So we light a candle for the Shabbat table, or you see my candles behind me. And it's romance, but it's also holiness. It's a romance because we're having a date with the Almighty. We're having a date with God. We get all dressed up and we learn about Him through learning Torah. We learn about each other. We learn about ourselves. And we get ready to have a special date every single week. We light that romantic candle that brings holiness to our home. So you got a date. You dated to get married. You have to date to stay married. You dated to get married. You have to date to stay married. And at the beginning, well, there's no one else. It's just no other children. We're just hanging out together. What's the point of going out? And then the children come. I can't get out. There's no babysitters. You dated to get married. You have to date to stay married. So Shabbos is a marriage between Hashem and the Jewish people. And it comes every single week. And even if you just to celebrate Shabbat, you wear special jewelry wherever you are to honor Shabbos. So you have to figure out a time where you're not talking about the bills and you're not talking about the kids and you're not talking about the heavy issues, and you're just connecting to learn and to stay connected about each other's hopes, dreams, and aspirations, to have fun together. So you've got to date that Shabbos in marriage. Number 5, you've got to honor your parents. Oh, here's the biggie. Okay, so honor your parents. Number 1. What is respect? Okay, I taught another class that you can all go check out on HTV, RESPECT. Find out what it means to me. So it's really understanding what respect is. So R, do it quickly for you. R is find a role model. E is esteem, hold them in high esteem. S is speech, show respect through the way you speak to them. P is in public, don't diss them in public in front of other people. E is have empathy. C is in calendar, which is date night. And T is in touch and Torah, ways to show respect. So that's with your partner. But if we're talking marriage, you know that respecting and honoring your parents is also extended to your in-laws. It's the same. So just like you have to honor and respect your parents and take care of all of their needs, you have to do the same with your in-laws too. So for in-laws, stay with me. So for in-laws, you're not, for your parents, you're not meant to sit in their place. You're meant to stand as they walk in the room or greet them as they walk in the room. And you're not meant to contradict them. You're meant to take care of their needs. It's the same with in-laws. But with in-laws, they also just want to be needed, as do parents. And we spend our time saying, I don't need you, I'm independent. That's it. The easiest way is also to show empathy and to take care of their needs, and do it with happiness and gratitude that they created your husband. You have a happy marriage because they put time into raising him. So we also have to honor and respect our in-laws at the same time. Make sure that there's a boundary between your parents and his parents and your relationship. Under the chuppah, as you walk around your husband in an Ashkenazi ceremony, you're checking him out, everything about him. I accept everything about him, but at the same time, I'm building a wall around our relationship to anything else outside. And what stays in and what stays out. It's important to know that. So just a piece of advice. He deals with his parents and you deal with your parents. So I have unbelievable stories to tell you, but we're not going to do it now. So tell this is live. Also, honoring your husband. If you treat your husband like a king, he'll treat you like a queen. If you treat your husband like a king, then you're married to a king and then you're the queen. So it's wise advice from the Talmud. It's not something that we have an easy time putting into practice though. So when you're out of the house and with other people, never criticize or argue with him in front of other people. Always validate and support him. And people always in public, this is in public, people always air their dirty laundry on Facebook. Don't do it. Just stop it. You think that you've just made a few hints, but really you've told us all about the state of your relationship because you're upset with them and you want to take revenge and let everyone know what their actions were. It's not tasteful. It's not a good idea. It's amazing. However subtle you think you're being, it's really embarrassing and humiliating to your spouse. So how about turning it around and praising your husband to him and to someone else? Just do a 30-day challenge for 30 days. Try it. Imagine how different you will feel when you hold him in high esteem and respect him, like honoring your parents. There are all these laws that we need to do to show gratitude that they created us, to be grateful for him and to honor him. 30 days, let someone else know how incredible he is and let him know how incredible he is. Number 6, 6-shooter. Don't kill, don't murder. So it says in the Talmud that embarrassing someone is akin to murder. It's the same thing. The blood rushes from your face, or you go white, or you go red. It's the same idea. It's comparable to a murderer. So in Jewish thought, embarrassing someone in public is considered a really serious crime. So Judaism was really sensitive to how painful an experience is humiliating when it's done in public in front of other people. We shouldn't embarrass people at all. So despite the harm that they've done to him, at this point in the story, it doesn't matter what the person is saying, never contradict them in public. I've had couples come to my table and he's telling over a story and she's contradicting him all the way through. I'm sure she doesn't think she's criticizing or contradicting. All the way through, she's saying, no, there wasn't 100 people. Oh, the traffic wasn't that bad. Every time he exaggerates in order to make the story really fabulous, she's correcting him. So it's pleasurable to be right. But if you're choosing between being right and being happy, be happy. Have a relationship. You don't have to be right and make the other person feel embarrassed all the time. So when Rachel was meant to marry Jacob, and there was a special sign that Jacob gave to Rachel so that he would know that he was marrying the right person behind the veil. And which is why, by the way, before we get married, in a traditional wedding ceremony, before the chuppah, before the marriage canopy, the groom puts over the face of the bride, he checks that it's the bride that he's marrying, comes from this story. Because they organized this special secret so that Jacob would know that it was Rachel. And she was so worried that because the Lavan made Leah marry Jacob instead, and Rachel knew that Leah wasn't going to have the special secret and she didn't want her to be embarrassed. So she told her the secret. She ended up marrying him years later as well. And they had the tribes of Israel. But wow, the lengths that she went to when she was imagine being madly in love with someone, and yet you don't want to embarrass your sister. There's such greatness that we learn from our foremothers and forefathers. We have the spiritual DNA too. We got it inside of us. So why do we feel the need sometimes to embarrass people in front of others? It's a lack of our own self-esteem. It brings attention to us, which we find pleasurable, but it's something to think about. We're not meant to embarrass people, especially our spouse. So it says don't murder because everyone is created in God's image and anything is possible without God. You can rationalize every one of your actions, from speaking badly, not going to work when you're meant to be at work, to murder, cutting someone off on the freeway. All of your acts of murdering, you can also. You choose to do something because you rationalize and decide what's right and what's good. You can rationalize everything. When you look at your husband, everyone around you. You're meant to see their soul. Hurt people hurt people. If you feel they're always hurting you, it's maybe look a bit deeper and see that they're hurt too. Number 6, don't murder. Don't humiliate people in public. It's akin to murder. It's embarrassing someone is akin to murder. So we've got to be careful in public too. Number 7, don't commit adultery. No one's running around, hopefully. You're not running around committing adultery, but there's also emotional adultery when it comes to relationships. You're putting your energy into other things. So triangulation is a concept in Bowenian therapy, that if you have a man and a woman that have a stressful, conflicted relationship, each person or one person, the mother, if she's stressed out, instead with the husband, may go to a third. That's a triangle. It could be the baby. It may put loads of energy and attention into the child because the relationship with the husband is way too stressful, and the relationship to the child is easy. And she receives back through smiles and connection. But it's difficult with the husband. And also for the husband, again, there's no gender difference here. But for the husband, an example could be he triangulates with a thing, with work. Because to have a relationship with a woman is too stressful. And it's fluid. The triangle can always move around. So if there's conflict or stress in a relationship, you incorporate a third person that's stress-free. And that's what you pour all your emotional energy into. So it could be works, kids, exercise, the internet, phones that you're pouring your energy into are apart from your spouse. So being involved in other things means that you're not available to develop and work on the communication in the relationship. So one of the most critical building blocks for the Jewish home is that the husband and wife have to be each other's first priority, not someone else. The point that needs great emphasis here is because we live in a child-oriented or a phone or a work or a career-orientated world, and our generation is so obsessed and confused that they focus on everything else apart from their spouse. Endless school activities, carpooling, spending time in the martial arts, tennis, baseball, soccer practice, or whatever you could come up with. So children are a blessing and a responsibility, but we don't take it lightly. But the Torah says you got to make the husband and wife the centerpiece of the home. I read an article once of Fagi Tversky. I think it was on Aish actually. And she said that when she was bringing up her children, whenever they needed something around the table, and in a regular home, the kids get fed first and then the husband can have. So she always taught her children, daddy's needs come first. Once I take care of daddy's needs, then I'm going to come to you. Not only did the children understand to respect their father, but they learned the strength and security they had because they saw it in the relationship of their parents first, being each other's first priority. Number 8, don't steal. So don't steal time, don't steal sleep, don't steal. It's forbidden to steal, whether from a child or a grown-up, anyone, Jewish, not Jewish. So often in a relationship, this is a stretch. Often in a relationship, we see when someone hurts you, like a spouse, then you choose to withhold pleasure from them. Don't steal their right to have a relationship with you. We, instead of choosing emotional maturity, we go for emotional immaturity, and we slam the cupboard a little bit harder and go to the bed or sit on the couch and scroll through your phone. Don't give eye contact. All those things that we do because we feel hurt by the other person. And look, it's impossible to live with the other person for 24/7 and not have hurt in the relationship. But what's important is to figure out hurt management and not just withhold, steal pleasure or time or sleep from the other person, but to figure out that I can be a giver. I've got to have emotional maturity and not take pleasure away from them. If hurt people, then I need hurt management. I have to figure out how to listen, and how to listen to understand, and how to problem solve, how to discuss what's going on before we launch into finding solutions, and always making sure that when you have a conversation where you have a solution, that there's a follow-up conversation a week later, a month later, to see, is this working for you? Is this working for me? Because to withhold a relationship, to withhold pleasure, to withhold intimacy, because the other person has hurt you, it's much better to figure out emotional maturity, hurt management, to listen to the other person, and come up with solutions of being a team. Being a team. That's number 8. Number 9, don't lie. So don't lie is don't come to a Jewish court and say that something isn't true. University of Massachusetts says people lie 2 or 3 times in a conversation. That's mind-blowing. So there's a big difference between, there are many times in Judaism when you are allowed to lie. One is for shalom, one is for peace. Someone comes and says to you at the wedding, you see my wife, isn't she beautiful? You're allowed to lie. It's, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Sorry to give that example. So lie to get out of taking responsibility is often what people do. And you know, you never made a phone call, you never made the deposit, you remembered to do something. Don't lie, just apologize to the spouse. It doesn't break you, it makes you when you step up to responsibility instead of blaming something or someone or moving into lying. However, most people lie because they're scared of the consequences of telling the truth. So your job here with number 9, don't lie, don't give false testimony, is to figure out how to create an environment that's safe, where the other person is not scared that they're going to get rejected for what they say or what they do, or how they are, how they behave. That if someone comes in and they're late, you say, why are you late again? Where have you been? Instead say, oh, was there so much traffic? And give them an opportunity to speak. Or, hi, how you doing? And let them tell you the story instead. When you come at someone, you criticize them, they're going to lie because they're scared of the consequences of either perhaps your moods, your changing moods. They don't know what they're going to walk into. So you also have to be consistent with your moods as well. So also with lying, you have to figure out the difference between opinion and approval. So someone comes to you and says, you know, going out tonight and with the cab, the Uber's outside right now and you have to jump in. And they say, oh, hi, let's get in the Uber. Do you like what I'm wearing? They're asking for your approval. They're not asking for your opinion. So you say, oh, fabulous. You're allowed to lie. Okay, if they're asking for your opinion, they're not going to ask you when you're in the Uber or about to get into it. They're going to ask you as you're an hour before when they're getting ready to go out. So the same, someone asks you if they like your new haircut. If it's after the fact and there's nothing they can do about it, build someone, don't break them. Don't always have to be honest in instances like that where you can build someone and keep the peace. So, but again, to lie out of getting out of responsibility, it's going to build you taking responsibility, not break you. And we're going to move on to number 10. Number 10 is don't be jealous. So being jealous is an understanding here. It's a fundamental error. It's really that this is just not fair. So if we understand that Hashem runs the world and he gives you everything you need in order to do your job in this world, everything is fair. Everything from how he eats, how he shakes hands, how he delivers, how much money he earns, or she. whatever your spouse's strengths and weaknesses are perfect for you to grow, to learn, to develop patience. Everyone is put into your life for you to learn from, for you to grow from, and it's perfect. Every single morning we woke up and we say a blessing. The blessing is, thank you, Hashem, for providing me with all of my needs, which sounds bizarre because I don't have my vacation in the Bahamas, but I know that Hashem has given me everything I need in order to do my job. So your husband, like a car that turns up with a big red bow on him under the chuppah, is a gift from God for you to be able to have a fulfilling life. It may not seem it sometimes, but when we look inside rather than to the other person of how I can develop and what I can learn and how I can grow and how I can become a professional marriage partner and learn together through these 10 commandments of how we can give to one another. Judaism teaches that Hashem gives everyone exactly what he needs. Everyone has a mission and everyone has a reason for being here. So I Googled once about jealousy and a website came up giving me an opportunity to read my future. But it said that the power of your imagination is what makes you jealous. And it was a hypnotizing site that was going to help me change the power of my imagination. But I will say though, however fanciful the website was, really jealousy is when your imagination grabs a hold of your thinking and takes you off into places of fanciful stories rather than keeping you present with who you are and being content with what you have. Says that Ben Zoma says the happy person is the one who's content with what he has. So all jealousy is caused by an overactive and misused imagination, says the website. I thought that was cute. So this is what your jealousy or your imagination creates. Here's a long list of if only. I will be happy if only this happens. So when I get my PhD, I'm going to be happy. When I finish my first job, I'm going to be so happy. When I get out of this job, I'm going to be so happy. When I get my first relationship, I'm going to be so happy. When I get out of this relationship, I'm going to be so happy. When I get married, I'm going to be so happy. When I get divorced, I'm going to be so much happier. When I have kids, I'm going to be so happy. When I get my kids out of my house and have some space, I'm going to be so happy. So how can we feel that we have everything we need? Is knowing Hashem has given me everything I need. And a big part of what I need is the person who I'm having a relationship with. And our job is to not be jealous, but to understand that. And I wake up every morning and I say a series of blessings. Instead of, and those blessings are, thank you Hashem for the 6 million pixel cameras I have on the front of my face. Thank you that I have the clarity of thought to be able to distinguish between good and bad, light and dark, the morning and the evening. Thank you that I can stand straight, that I can walk firmly, that I'm free of thoughts, of there are many blessings that we say. Every single one of them is 101 of gratitude. It allows you to really focus on the gifts that Hashem has given you. So your husband's also one of those gifts. Your wife is one of those gifts. And we have so much to be thankful for. Gratitude is the antidote of jealousy. To being able to know that everything I have is everything that I need. And that what is happiness? Happiness is being content with what I do have and focusing on all the blessings that I have in my life. So they're the 10 commandments of marriage. Number 1, know there's a God. Develop a deep, intimate relationship with your spouse. Know him through developing friendship. Number 2, there's not 2 gods. Know that when you stand under the chuppah and you get a blessing, you should be like Adam and Eve in the Garden of Old, because there was no one else there. There's no one to think, or maybe it should have been him, maybe it should have been her, I would have been happy. Number 3, oh my God, don't take Hashem's name in vain. Your words have power. Speech redefines your reality. Use kind words, giving words, requests instead of demands, compliments instead of criticism. 4, keep Shabbos. 2 challahs, 2 candles. 4 is Shabbos is a date with the Almighty. Get dressed up and learn Torah and learn about Him. Learn about the weekly Torah portion. Learn about yourself through that. So you dated to get married. Now you got a date to stay married. Eye contact. No iPhone, no iPad, just eye contact. Hopes and dreams and aspirations of connection. Number 5, honor your parents. Learn what it means to respect your spouse like a king. You could be the queen. And also, when the laws of honoring your parents, also connect to your in-laws. Have a beautiful relationship with them. Be grateful, at least they created your spouse. Number 6, a 6-shooter. Don't murder. Murdering in Judaism is akin to embarrassing someone. So don't embarrass your spouse in public. Make sure in public to validate them, to support them, not to contradict them, to make sure that their story is factually correct. Being right is pleasurable, but being happier is much more pleasurable. Number 7 is don't commit adultery. Don't commit emotional adultery either. Don't worship fame and status symbols and your career and exercise and then get upset that your husband isn't helping you get there. Number 8, don't steal. Don't withhold pleasure from your spouse if they've hurt you or you have felt hurt. Hurt people hurt people. Perhaps I can understand what's wrong, what was the source, what was the cause of all of this. Don't withhold pleasure, don't steal time, don't steal sleep. Figure out how to be in a giving relationship. Number 9, don't lie. Have integrity, not lying, and know that when we lie, we're usually scared of the consequences. So your job is to create a safe environment where the other person doesn't fear rejection for what they say or what they do or how they behave. And number 10 is don't be jealous. Don't cover other people's things. Hashem has given you everything perfectly, exactly right. Every event, every circumstance, every situation, every person that's in your life happens for a reason. And say the blessing every day. Thank you, Hashem, for giving me all of my needs. Because Hashem has given you everything in your toolbox that you need in order to do your job. And part of that is your husband or your wife. And we've got to be grateful for all the blessings and all the gifts. Enjoy. 10 Commandments of Marriage coming up to the holiday of Shavout also includes wisdom on how to have great relationship. Thank you. Bye.